2 weeks down at beautiful Belmont Park, and we are off and running on this new edition of the show on MSG Plus. It's the National Racing Report. Glad you're with us. Third floor Clubhouse Studios at the Big B. Mother's Day in the rearview mirror. Preakness week is upon us. It's the MIG, Richard Migliore, Andy Serling, Jason Blewitt, and we've got the Derby to discuss. The 3-year-olds marching on to Preakness 140. And how about 4 graded stakes here on Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, I feel like we've got a nice mix of races. We had some terrific races here on Saturday afternoon. Some interesting stuff out west as well.
Yeah, some horses that could have a say going forward in their respective divisions. Excuse me, trying to get this out. But especially a horse of Mandela's, I was pretty impressed with.
Yeah, looking forward to talking about that race in a little while.
I feel pretty comfortable saying this is the first racing report we've had a Brazilian Triple Crown winner on, that's for sure. And sit tight for Mandela's monster out in the American on the turf at Santa Anita. But we do begin here at Belmont Park on the grass with Saturday's Grade 1 Man of War short field. I'll send it to you guys from the break. Imaginings on the rail in the red cap.
Yeah, a difference in riding tactics where War Dancer Jose Lezcano seized control of the race early. Imagining Herrera Ortiz did the opposite.
Well, and then you can see he went from probably going to have perfect position in the pocket to now he is completely shuffled back, and the horse's rank. He's pulling. He's out of position. They're going slow, and this was not one of Irad's finer performances.
Yeah, it's, you know, we've talked about it before. This is somebody, Irad's going to be winning a lot of big races for a long time in racing, and once he gets more comfortable having his horses more forwardly placed, he's going to be even better than he is now. And Imagining probably doesn't help, to be fair. This is a horse that at times has really sulked in races when taken out of position. And once Irad kind of grabbed him and did that, I think the horse had enough already.
Yeah, well, once he was, you got into that fight with him early. Obviously, he's a horse that he's not happy, comfortable being inhibited. He wants to be free running in the sense that he's got a big, long stride. You need to let him be efficient and use that stride. Once he came out pulling up, now he's shuffled back out of position, and now they're going to go slow. The race is taking shape, and you're a victim.
Right, exactly. The race is taking shape, and you're in the worst possible position.
Right.
Whereas if you get that position going forward, like you like to talk about, you're in good position, even if you're not in the lead. And he did a very good job the race before it rating him, but this was a different situation. And Jose Lezcano, let's give him some love here, because War Dancer, first time on the turf for Bill Motton here, and he's a horse that's never been quite as good as these, but not that far off him. He gave him his absolute best chance to win by sending him the lead.
Well, yeah, and he's just galloping along in the lead. It's not like he's having to use him hard to be there, and he's comfortable. He's not fighting with him. The horse is in a good rhythm. Now he's got the horse, the Twilight Eclipse, right on his outside, and Javier Castellano obviously doesn't want to go by this horse too soon, because it seems to me Twilight Eclipse waits on horses when he makes the lead. Now, I was of the opinion, and I'll be fair about this, that he was a horse that had some hang in him, maybe didn't want.
He may have a little hang in him, but he won today.
But then I think about, this is his best buyer figure. You know, he's equaled his best buyer. Maybe he's just running as hard as he possibly can every time, and that's what it is.
That's very possible.
And he also had 5 consecutive losses against Main Sequence last year, and they were all very close margins.
Well, it's funny. It doesn't always happen, but I thought that we said something kind of smart in the prattle before the race, or I should say prescient. I wouldn't say smart. We said Twilight Eclipse has been good enough to win these races, but there's always somebody a little bit better. But one of these days, he's going to get the right trip, and his chief competition isn't going to get a good trip, and perhaps that'll get him to victory. And this may be what happened here. His chief competition was Imagining. He got the wrong trip, and Javier was smart enough to see right away what was going on. He saw Irad was taking back, and frankly, we've talked about this before, he probably predicted it, as did Jose Lezcano. He saw Jose Lezcano was going to lead, and he figured, if I don't go against War Dancer, no one's going to go with him, and I'm going to become a victim. So Javier put himself right on War Dancer, and he was able to wear him down. So give Javier a lot of credit for taking advantage of the situation.
Well, absolutely, and it helps to have a handy horse like Twilight Eclipse, who's shown that he's handy. He can attend the pace and still finish. And I'm glad this horse finally got a Grade 1. I think he deserved it. He shows up every time. He runs hard, and he's kind of like this unassuming kind of horse that just, like, matter of fact, I'm here. I did my job. Kind of a lunch pail horse.
No, I completely agree with you. It's funny, watch races, and I had bet War Dancer, and I thought to myself after the race, if I had to lose to somebody, I'm kind of happy I lost to this horse because he's done so much good running for so long. It's nice to see him finally get one of these big races, like the Connections. Nice to see Tommy leading the horse in. And I think it's a good story with Twilight Eclipse. It's the kind of horse that racing needs.
And he's a real fan favorite. He represents, whether you're talking about that big owners group of West Point that was waiting for him up victory lane in the winner's circle, the fact that he's by a fairly modest sire, and he's a gelding, and he just shows up and runs multiple times, at least a half a dozen times a year. He's just a solid racehorse who represents everything great about the game.
And he always runs well.
Yeah.
He just, and if you always run well, sometimes it's going to work out for him. And I think it did here. And sitting in the boxes watching the race, and you talk about it, watching all those people from West Point cheering for the horse, it was exciting.
They caught my attention. I was in the winner's circle, and I looked up, and they were really rooting and cheering, and that was great. Quickly, before we move on, Hyper, I thought, ran really, really well. I thought he was a horse, obviously, coming off a long layoff that had some nervous energy, kind of acted up a little bit before the start, and really hung in there well.
He broke through the gate before the start, and he hadn't run a year and a half, and I agree. I'm glad you mentioned him. And I also think hardest score coming off the layoff. Saez had to get off him on the backstretch before they went to the gate.
He kept freezing. He wouldn't move.
Yeah, he seemed a little unhappy. Hopefully he can move forward from this race. He kind of lost his race before the start as well.
We hope that's the case. They delayed the Man of War a good 10 minutes or so, waiting for hardest score to join the field. We'll see what he can do down the road. For us down the road, this multi-millionaire gray New York-bred mare coming up for Christophe Command. Back at Belmont Park, we are ready to start week number 3. Of course, Preakness week here in New York. It is the National Racing Report on MSG+, and we are back on our third-floor clubhouse studios. It's the MIG, it's Andy, it's Jason. Glad you're doing okay. Hope you have a great Preakness weekend. More on that in a few moments. How about the Bögy here on Saturday? Solid group, fillies and mares. You would think implications going forward to the Grade 1 Just a Game on Belmont Stakes Day.
No doubt about it. I think there's a number of horses that ran this race that have every right to be a factor in there. John Velasquez is the perfect rider for Discreet Mark. He's going to let her do what she does well and not get in her way, and that was control the race. I think Jay Wonder hurts herself a little bit at the break, and the inside post did her no favors. And as it turns out, Radiator is just not as good as maybe they thought after the last race.
No, because she really didn't have any excuse. She was in the perfect position, stalking a slow pace that Discreet Mark was setting. Two things that really stood out to me about this. First of all, Christophe Command, he's the maestro. He's getting a horse ready to be this prepared to run off the layoff. If they don't take this video and give it to every jockey school in the nation on how to ride a horse on the lead, Johnny Velasquez did everything picture perfect. When you go slow, at some point use that to your advantage. And you're going to see as we get into the turn here, he's going to move his hands very subtly, and the horse is going to open up and start to sprint home. He didn't wait for horses to get on top of him before he asked her to run, and that's the way to ride a horse on the lead.
And the other thing he does in the stretch is he puts her out in the two-path. So he makes it hard for anybody to come inside of her down the stretch, and he makes it hard for the horse Jay Wonder. And here's what you're talking about. It makes it hard for Jay Wonder to go outside of her, and he does everything right on this horse.
This was just, I was having fun watching it because I'm thinking the way he's thinking. Now he's letting her sprint on. Don't hold her up and keep everybody in the race. She went slow enough. Now you've used that advantage. Now he's just off the rail enough where Jay Wonder really can't go inside him comfortably. And then she's got to fight her way out before Radiator finally drifted enough. But the race is basically over. She's sprinting through the wire.
I agree. An excellent effort by Photo Call to finish second here with Rajiv. I thought Rajiv did as good a job as he could getting position with her, but considering the pace and where she was, there was no way she was going to win the race. But I would think that those connections are heart going towards a race like the Just a Game, where there figures to be some more pace, that she ran well enough. I don't want to give up on Jay Wonder yet. Maybe she wasn't happy down towards the inside. As you pointed out, we talked about trying to get out. She's going to have to step it up a little bit, though. I thought she probably should have been second here.
Well, her race at Keeneland, when she the first start in the country, she kind of had an outside trip, pulled herself into the race, I thought, a little early.
She broke slowly, too.
And did break slow. And she said, well, she has a right to hang a little bit. Maybe she got a little bit tired as well. I didn't see the big pop when she did get clear, and I'm just wondering if she's not a little one-paced.
I think that's very fair, and I think if you look at the Keeneland race, I think Javier rode her a little bit like that, because the way he was holding her in that race, he was worried whether or not she had a burst and how he was going to let it go. But I also think she was compromised by the slow pacing here and the fact that the winner was the horse to beat and had the big pace advantage.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it thinking maybe she'd be a little better going a little further, where if she can just keep grinding as opposed to this kind of race where they can't sprint home.
Interesting thought. I'm sure Sugar's thinking about it.
And many people going in kind of expected Radiator to show up with a huge effort for Juddmonte and Belmont. Any thoughts with her? She was up close, under a hold, and had nothing at crunch time.
If Belmont's barn likes her a lot, I'll give her a pass and let her win one more race before I say she's not that good. But I didn't love her Keeneland race and didn't love her going in, but that's just me.
Well, and let's make sure we give enough credit to the winner, Discreet Mark. I mean, she's awfully good, and she got everything her own way. And I also think it's a race she can move forward off of.
Absolutely, and as you point out with Christophe, as much as any trainer, he just does a sensational job at everything.
Fourth career win in the Bögy for Christophe Command, and we've been in good company so far with Twilight Eclipse and Discreet Mark as we get on to the 3-year-olds in Saturday's Peter Pan. Some graded stakes action around 2:20 in the afternoon sounded okay to us. A little bit of a Big A fog seemed to roll in as they broke from the gate, and we could pick it up as 2 weeks off in the Yellow Cap between and Bob Baffert's horse. That was a Wolfman Rocket start to vie for the lead.
I tell you, myself and a lot of people were completely wrong about this race. I thought the 2 weeks off that big win at Keeneland was poised to maybe take a step forward and be a player in the 3-year-old division. If that's going to happen, it ain't going to be going long, that's for sure. I thought Made from Lucky was flattered by being against American Pharoah while doing no running, and I was wrong about that because he buries the field, and in process, he flatters American Pharoah.
Yeah, I thought the same thing about him flattering American Pharoah. I didn't expect 2 weeks off to have as much company up front. I actually thought he'd dictate things a little bit more.
The 5 I thought would have more speed, to be honest. I thought the 1 would be sitting third.
Well, I think the 5 was taken back off of that because, Jose Lezcano recognized that, well, the other horse is doing the dirty work. Let me kind of get that stalking trip, don't you?
Yeah. I thought that I thought that Tisdale did. Believe it or not, if you look at the pace projector, you look at pace figures, the 4 and 5 were supposed to be the 2 speeds. The 1 was supposed to be sitting behind them. I wonder if on the rail with Wolfman Rocket, maybe Arad thought I might have to take control of this race. It just sort of, did it really matter at the end of the day?
Well, no, because Made from Lucky was very, very good. And one thing that, if you watch the way he strides out exactly like his father, looking at Lucky, kind of his head out, reaching, just basically a horse that's got a big, long stride. And I'd have to think he's going to be all right in the Belmont going a mile and a half with that stride.
Certainly doesn't hurt him. Whether or not he's good enough is another story. This race came up okay. I think it got a buyer figure of 94, but the problem is that 94 is such a long way from so many horses that we've seen in the big races. Now, obviously, you don't know what's going to happen in the Preakness, so you don't know who's going to come back for the Belmont. But right now, what he really showed people, I think, is just how good the good 3-year-olds are, because he's not nearly as good as them. And he buries this field and looks very impressive in doing it.
Right. He was beaten 9 lengths by American Pharoah, and you go, well, maybe it wasn't a bad effort at all. It's just maybe he ran into the monster.
Yeah, I think it's just, it's funny, and I don't mean this as any criticism Made from Lucky. He's a very nice horse. I just think it shows how tough this 3-year-old division is, and that's a good thing. It shows how much we have to look forward to throughout the year, because when you talk about the top-level 3-year-olds, and I don't think Todd Pletcher has any illusions. He knows that this horse isn't going to beat them, and he's got at least one in his barn in materiality that's considerably better, and perhaps Carpe Diem is better as well. So this is a good horse, but those horses are more than good horses.
That was an interesting angle when they showed from the inside. You see Javier Castellano pulling his goggles down so clearly. And I just like when you can get people a little bit more close to the action and they see things like that, because it's so subtle when you're away from it, but that angle really showed it.
18 graded stakes wins on the year and counting for Javier Castellano, who's got over $3.5 million in graded stakes company alone, and he has won 2 of the 3 stakes we've looked at on the show thus far. As we get on to the Ruffian, a race that has bounced all over the stakes calendar. It was run on the second Saturday of the spring summer meet, and for Keir McLaughlin, a return to the winner's circle with the talented Wedding Toast.
Yeah, and Via Estrada, the other half of the entry, was bad, and when she tried to step it up, she wasn't nearly good enough. And this, to me, is an extremely good example to go along with the Madison at Keeneland to show how much race dynamics affect a race. Because in the Madison at Keeneland, Wedding Toast was part or closer to a very fast pace that totally evaporated and finished well behind Princess Violet, who got that picture-perfect ride from Junior Alvarado that day, sitting well back, moving up the rail. So she was able to win. In this race, she ends up the stalking horse, but stalking her is Wedding Toast, who gets as good, if not a better trip, and she turns out to be much better.
Yeah, Wedding Toast almost became the hunter, not the hunted. And Princess Violet had a good trip. She's stalking from the outside. But I think just having Via Strada in there, and that is your entry mate, okay, she's going to be the speed. It changes your whole concept of the race going in, from Jose Lezcano's perspective. And she looked like a winner from the 3/8 ball.
I agree. And I think that Princess Violet actually ran fine in this race. I mean, the winner got a 97 figure. Maybe Princess Violet ran a little bit worse than she's been running. And I don't think it's the mile, because she ran well in the Go for One last year. I just think Wedding Toast delivered in a big way.
Yeah, and I think she kind of signaled that she can step up. I mean, and she does definitely deserve a chance in the Phipps.
Why not?
On Belmont Day.
Well, they almost won it last year, Godolphin and Kieran, with Antipathy. It was steady repeatedly down inside, had some severe traffic woes before she bounced forward. Would she win the Go for Wand upstate at Saratoga early on?
Yeah, I don't think we saw her after First Valencia, but you're right. An argument could be made that she could have upset that field in the Phipps, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the Phipps, because Untappable, she's run 2 starts. She won the Grade 1 down at Oakland, but she hasn't looked like the Untappable yet of last year, so I don't think she's going to be scaring a lot of people off, especially for $1 million. And Beholder, who had to miss the race that we'll show in a few moments from Santa Anita, hopefully she's going to come, but we don't know if she's going to come. She seems to break out in hives when her name goes in the entry box. I mean, it's a shame. I hate to say it.
No, she's had a lot of setbacks. This is not the first time
this has happened.
Yeah, she's had a lot of setbacks, whether it's illness or injury. So hopefully we get her here healthy, and we get to see the real Beholder and the real Wedding Toast and the real Untappable.
Yeah, because I mean, at this point, as you say, Jay, why is Wedding Toast a big price in the Ogden Phipps?
She won't be a big price. As you said, this race came up with a 97. She's back on her best. They brought her back after knee surgery as a 5-year-old, I think, which underscores the confidence that A, they had in her, and B, just how well she was doing physically.
Makes sense to me.
Right?
Yep.
All right, that's the Ruffian. We've got our little rolling pick 4 at Belmont Park in the books. A trip out to the West Coast is in the cards for us on MSG Plus, as we've got a lot more coming your way. Summer starts here at beautiful Belmont Park. We're taping the show on a gorgeous Sunday, Mother's Day morning, and tickets are on sale currently at BelmontStakes.com. 3 days, 17 stakes, $10 million on the line. And again, we go back to the 4 we looked at, 4 stakes from Belmont Park. I've got to imagine we'll see those names and many more running here first week of June.
Oh, no. I mean, the list of stars that's going to be here on that Saturday card, and we're previewing them every week when we show these big races. It's going to be a sensational day of racing, and if there's some seats left and you want them, and you wait until American Pharoah wins the Preakness, you're going to be out of luck.
Yeah, absolutely. American Pharoah wins it with the card that's backing up the Belmont Stakes. You won't be able to get in there.
And even with the hype surrounding him post-Derby win, he was the favorite. He's got a huge bandwagon. He's very talented. Don't wait until Saturday and take a chance. Get it done before the Preakness. And, of course, we'll have our Preakness recap for you on this show next week. Let's move on to the Vanity now. Just a field of 4. And the Place Bridge jumpers, they took it on the chin here at 17, 20, and 22 even on the first 2.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Richie about this with Tyler Bays, who's got obviously a lot of confidence. The more I watched it, I felt like she just ran a bit of a clunker, but I do think she's probably a horse that would have been happier trying to make an outside move, and even though she had a lot of room on the inside, I'm not sure why Tyler, as they head in the backstretch, when he has that chance to clear off and move outside, didn't do that, Richie. And that's hindsight.
Well, I think they're going so slow that he never really was fully comfortable enough to get, like, he would have had to take her back even more here, I think. They're off the rail. He knows that My Sweet Addiction doesn't corner well. She's always a filly that tries to drift out. And Mike Smith does a sensational job with her. I'm going to talk about that into the second.
A little
turn.
like Johnny, but even more so.
Yeah, exactly. Just really light-handed. And, people think, well, a horse is trying to bear to the right. They're going to pull hard on the left rein. Well, actually, that sometimes just makes it worse. What he does is allow her to drift and go forward at the same time and not get into a fight with her. And that's when they talk about a rider having good hands. That was a clear illustration of that. And I just don't think Tyler, as slow as they were going, was able to get his mare back far enough where he wasn't hooked on heels, and he had to just allow her to go up the inside.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough. More I watched a couple times. First, I thought he should have just gotten to the outside. But you know what? It's so easy to say that, as you say, and there's going slowly. And, gee, she had so much room to get through. I mean, there was a point in early stretch where you thought, well, she'll just win. She she is the best horse. She's 1-9. How many shenanigans does he need to pull to get her to win? She's supposed to win this race. This was not her best effort.
No, from there she's supposed to win, although I think she is better when she has pace in front of her and she makes that one run. Where now you see how far out My Sweet Addiction is, and Mike didn't get in a fight with her, and then she basically was straight through the stretch, just around turns, and she's done this in all her starts. She actually bolted early in her career, and Mike was able to just keep her going forward, and I'd like to see more riders do that. Like when a horse is getting out, don't reach and grab them so much, ride them through the turn, because sometimes when you ride them through the turn, they actually get around there better.
Well, I think it gets into the discussion of not getting in the way of your horse.
Yeah.
Let your horse decide what to do, and maybe she turns out she wouldn't have been good enough, and it's obviously a little easier for Mike. She was second choice in a small field. If she had lost, he could have said, listen, I was just the second best horse in the race, and he wouldn't have been wrong. But the reality is these best riders, Johnny, Mike Smith, they're not getting in the way of their mounts, and that seems to be the best thing you can do.
Yeah, right. Don't inhibit a horse's natural gait. You don't take anything away that comes easy, and don't get in a fight with him. Use more energy fighting with them.
From a Hall of Fame jockey to a Hall of Fame trainer, as we get on to Richard Mandela's Brazilian star in Saturday's American Stakes. This horse, Balabali, is now got a very impressive.
13,
oh man, what an impressive resume and lifetime record. He is 12 for 13 with 10 stakes wins to his credit.
Breaks to the outside here and a very good ride by Pratt, getting this horse into position in the two-path behind the three horses, the absolute perfect trip. And this horse gets a perfect trip. I think this illustrates the difference between a horse in Brazil winning the Triple Crown and running against these horses out in California. But this is a first start here for this horse. And in a division where Wise Dan is at the very best, a major question mark right now. There is room at the top, and it's possible Bally can inhibit that room.
I thought this was a terrific first effort in this country, and he did get a terrific ride. He got covered up. He was always comfortable. He found the seam when he needed to. And Pratt's been riding very well out there. A native of France. He came here. The Wertheimer family asked Mandela to take him, and he really likes him, and he says he's great in the morning with horses. And the battle cry I've been hearing out in California, though, when he wins, especially he's won on a lot of long shots, is get fat with Pratt.
I like that.
Well, he rides this horse, Jay, absolutely perfectly in here. I mean, you look at him ride, you could have named any of the top riders in the country riding this horse because he has the confidence in this horse, and I'm sure he's ridden him in the morning, but this is some ride.
Oh, a ton of poise, and the ride made the difference here.
I agree.
If things don't go according to plan and he's not sitting chilly the way he is, maybe this horse actually gets beat on Saturday.
But I tell you, he's a fighter, the way he gets through this hole. I mean, I think sometimes you take it for granted that, oh, the seam opened up, he burst through. A lot of horses won't do that.
No, and the seam didn't really open up completely because he had to muscle his way out with the 6-horse and did it just right without actually fouling that horse and allowing his horse to go forward at the same time. And you're absolutely right. He's been working this horse in the morning, so that lends itself to that confidence you're speaking of. Okay, I know what this horse is capable, where I can put him, how he's easy to handle. I think it's so important when riders get familiar with horses like this in the morning.
Yeah, and it shows in a race like that because he did everything right. And this is the kind of horse you just like horses like Balabali, and especially once again, we don't know where Wise Danny's such a star in this game and star in that division. Let's hope we got another one.
And we were just talking about this horse's sire, put it back the other day on Talking Horses, winning the Riva Ridge over Flamethrower with Noel Winter back in 01.
Yeah, Noel Winter, and let's give Richard Mandela a little bit of more credit. I mean, he just trained his 2000th winner, and now he's got this horse, and he's done really well over the years with these South American imports.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, had a great record going back a long time, and I don't think there's any rider besides Noel Winter that benefited from Put It Back winning that Riva Ridge than this guy.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a story for another time. Let's move on to our last race. Fast Times on the Jersey Shore. Big field in Saturday's featured 11th race, the Decathlon. Frank Miramati did have the call. We will talk you through it, and it turned out to be a pretty much a two-horse battle between the big two favorites.
I know it's Monmouth, and they're not saying they're going to win some big races, but we've seen good horses come out of these races. We got the True North, we got the Vanderbilt, and this AP Indian is a pretty neat horse. He almost beat Transparent down at Keeneland, going a mile and 16th in his last start. What I like is not that he's able to cut back so fastly, but the fact that he's got such sharp speed in doing it. Maybe he was helped by Paco Lopez being a little bit patient with Favorite Tail, but this was the best horse, however you cut it, Richie.
No, he was the best horse, but like you're saying, when you're coming out of a distance race and you have this kind of speed, now you're supposed to have the stamina to boot, and he did, and I thought he was very impressive. I mean, he's going fast here, but he's going fast the right way.
No, I agree, and I mean, Favorite Tail, he has that perfect inside trip. He easily moves him out top of the stretch, and you think he's going to go by, and not only doesn't he go by, he can't get close to this horse. This was an okay race, and I like these two horses. Favorite Tail has a pretty good resume as well, well, and he actually upset the horse who was second, Fast Anna, I believe, in the Gallant Bob last year and run some good races. These horses are okay, Rich.
Yeah, these horses are okay. I think, too, he was glaring, though, when Favorite Tail got to AP Indian, wasn't getting by, was hanging on his left lead, and then when AP Indian left him, then he finally got to his right lead. And that's a clear illustration. One's on the right lead doing it properly, one's hanging on their left lead. I don't think it had any effect on the outcome, but it's just interesting to look at.
I'd like to get transparent back here to Belmont Park because I think this win by AP Indian quite simply just flattens Transparent, who's got a lot of ability.
He does, but the problem with Transparent is he's failed almost every time he's been in a realistic, in a tough spot. He looks good in allowance races, and as of now, he's got to prove it against better horses, and he hasn't.
Fair enough. We'll see Leigh Delacour, the trainer of AP Indian, in the starting gate, or at least divining rod of that barn in the starting gate in Saturday's Preakness. We've got our final race. We'll get you back to the action at Churchill Downs.
We're not going to show that race from Churchill.
We actually have it. I was just given the heads up, a special treat here on the National Racing Report, the Unbridled Sidney Stakes. And let's do it here. Katie's Eyes, 7-5 over Free as a Bird at 9-5.
You know what's interesting about this horse, and I'm glad that we have this race, is Free as a Bird has been the leader of this division for the fillies and bears. She's been sensational, winning 6 or 7 in a row. She goes to Keeneland, and she loses to this upcoming star, Katie's Eyes, who's a big price. Katie's Eyes that day is able to be right off the pace and dictate how the race is run. In this race, she rated very comfortably in here. She's not that far off Free as a Bird, yet she's still able to easily beat her. She's just the best horse.
She's the best horse. Now, is it because she's just better, or is Free as a Bird not as good as the Free as a Bird last year?
I think that's the case. I think as of now, Free as a Bird hasn't gotten back to last year. Whether or not she does remains to be seen. But I don't want that to diminish from this horse. Not that you're trying to do that. No. And I love the fact that she wins in a different manner than she won the week before, where she didn't necessarily have a tactical advantage over Free as a Bird. She was just better.
Yeah, and you can see, I mean, the way she kicks it in here and she runs by Free as a Bird. And Free as a Bird really was in a position to win the race. She got out-kicked. Now, let's be fair. Free as a Bird is 6 years old. Right. And with mares, there comes a point where their biological clock is ticking. And I just wonder, I mean, she's still running well, so maybe she's not there yet, but I don't think she's as good as she was.
If it was Gallop Racer, she'd be doing this.
Yeah, she'd be on the decline.
The other horses going like that.
All right, little PlayStation 2 talk after the show is over. As much as I love Gallop Racer, let's wrap things up. A look back, May 2nd, Kentucky Derby. 141. 4 of the first 5 finishers in the Derby are coming back Saturday in the Preakness.
I am so looking forward to this race. Are we sure if Materiality is running or not? Because he was 6th, and I hadn't heard whether he's running or not.
Galloped really well yesterday at Belmont. Todd Pletcher is still
said
non-committal.
Tomorrow, Monday, he's going to make a decision.
I hope he runs. This is going to be one sensational Preakness. Richie, I'll put you on the line. Think this horse is going to come back and win?
My big question mark is how hard he was ridden and how many times Victor Espinoza went to the whip. Does he regress from that, or does it make him man up more? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I think he regresses. I don't like to see a horse be under that kind of intense pressure. And I think with good horses, when you go to the whip, you have to give them an opportunity to respond what you're asking. You don't continually get into them like that.
I also think I agree with you completely, from start to finish. And also, you're asking an enormous amount, as good as this horse is, and he's a very good horse. But he's got to do it for his 4th time now in 9 weeks, and that is maybe too much. I think he either delivers a huge performance or he takes a big step back.
Well, if he's vulnerable, and clearly you guys both think he is, who's the play? Who are you looking at?
Materiality.
Materiality?
Yeah, Materiality with a clean trip. He's going to be, I think, right there in the Kentucky Derby. And if you're looking at a new shooter, I think Divining Rod is racing Lexington said he has another step forward if he can relax. Well, if he can relax, but don't you think he's a horse that's improving?
I like him. I just feel like none of these horses have been able to topple the big ones, but it's not a bottom.
Well, but they're coming back in 2 weeks, and he's fresh.
We'll see.
All right, the buzzer has sounded. We have hit the finish line. It's time for a little Gallop Racer tournament upstairs in my office. Let's go. Have a great Preakness, and we'll see you next time right here on MSG Plus.